2010, March 10th. It's cheating, looking at my computer. March 10th, 2024. Um, so I thought maybe, I never have too much plan what I'm going to talk about. I don't like having going in with a game plan. It sort of takes away from the spontaneity of the conversation, the creativity, just going into a conversation with no plan whatsoever and letting it unfold is really its own specific art, its own specific type of creativity that um, I could come in easily with a topic, and I do have a topic in mind, and even have note cards. I'd rather have Google, and as the conversation unfolds, turn to Google for information at hand, or again, just sort of free verse and see what comes up. I think when we do it that way, it teaches us to stay open, to be intuitive and spontaneous. We could call it a term, a hashtag that I use fairly often, and I don't know if it's an appropriate hashtag to gain attention. I actually know absolutely nothing about any of that. But it's a hashtag I use because it embodies everything I absolutely love to talk about. Natural yoga, or we could call it Niskara yoga. That was the term that Nisargadatta Maharishi used in what he taught, which is Niskara means natural. Natural yoga means the yoga of effortless yoga, the yoga of spontaneity, the yoga of intuition, the yoga of how life just naturally unfolds. That the reason why I might take a video of a duck and use the hashtag natural yoga, or of sunlit dappled water rippling across the pond, is because yoga itself means union, which only applies to the mind, because everything else is already in place, set. Doesn't need union because it's already one thing, seamlessly expressed. Even the mind itself is part of that appearance, part of that expression. But the mind also can deceive us into believing that there is a degree of separation between these things where there naturally isn't. So natural yoga is when we look at something, when you look at that sunlight and the water ripples through it, and you just have that moment of emptiness, not in a negative sense at all. Emptiness really isn't a negative experience when you're in it. True emptiness, because emptiness is the capacity to hold everything. Without emptiness, there is no deep appreciation for beauty. Without emptiness, there is no beauty whatsoever, because you need that spaciousness for beauty to appear. Without emptiness, there's no space for anything to be. And everything, according to the Heart Sutra, comes from, is still and always emptiness itself. The Heart Sutra being the Buddhist scripture that says form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And I always like to point out the operative word is. It doesn't say form comes from emptiness or emptiness becomes form. It is already and always. So emptiness and form, beauty and emptiness, that's yoga. One thing revealing itself in essence as many things, the variety of the world. So when you see something, what I would call a Zen short, just this moment of nature, or better yet, when you're there and you're experiencing it, everything drops away and there's just the experience itself. It used to be that I really dislike picking up a camera and trying to capture any of that, because I would think that it's an uh, implement that stands between me and the moment itself. But now that I've been trying to share some of these experiences, it feels more fitting. Um, I was wrong about that. It's all in the approach. A camera never has to be, any tool never has to be um, any kind of uh, object that stands between you and a moment, uh, if it's taken in the right way. If we view it as an object that's standing in the way, then of course it's an object that stands in the way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Um, when I watch Mocha, for those who are familiar with my channel, you know that Mocha is my ex-wife and present companion. Um, we have our own relationship that doesn't really have or need a term for it. She's a great photographer, and for her, the camera isn't an object. It's not a tool. It's an extension, part of the view, part of her view. Um, so there's no observer, instrument, and the observed. There's just the observation itself. Um, and it took seeing that from her that I was able to put aside my prejudice towards certain instruments, certain tools, and pick it up and know that it could be just as part of the moment as anything else that needs to be. So with that, I've been pursuing the shorts. So that's why I use the hashtag, whether it's appropriate or not, natural yoga and or Zen shorts. And again, Niskara yoga from Nisargadatta Maharishi. And it's all about just the natural, spontaneous, effortless flow of life itself, and how we are that. I was going to say part of that. Sometimes you got to be careful with language. If I say that I am part of that, then I am implying that there's a me that can appear at any time separate from what is happening, and there is a me that is simply that. And that's the whole essence of Niskara yoga. If someone were to say, what type of yoga do you practice? That would probably be as close as I could get, although, if need be, we could call it all kinds of other things as well. Our friend Hawk076, Joe, is here. Joe, how are you? Good morning to you. How are you doing? And yoga doesn't necessarily have to be the asanas, the postures and poses that we're familiar with. When I look at Joe do his morning push-ups, and he talks about it at his morning meditation, his morning discipline, that's yoga. Now, of course, the yoga postures that we're familiar with have a very specific purpose of opening up the energy centers of the spine to allowing that spiritual energy, kundalini, to flow freely. But asanas, poses, were only mentioned 3 times in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, 195, 197 sutras, and he mentions them in terms of holding steady, calm, focused in meditation. That is the role of the asanas. They were later adopted again to raise that kundalini energy, but that could be done through other means as well. And what Joe is doing is the purest form of yoga, in my opinion, because he gives himself to the moment. One of the things that I was going to talk about, Joe says, just waking up and about to do my push-ups while listening. I appreciate you allowing me to be part of it. So one of the things that I love to talk about is the foundation of yoga. And I'm gonna keep using Joe as an example here in a minute. Um, Without the foundation of yoga, you're just stretching or you're just contemplating. You're not really practicing yoga. You're just doing some physical stuff, which is perfectly fine. Do physical stuff, um, but it's not really yoga. The foundation of yoga and the 8 limbs that Patanjali offers in Raja Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga is the yamas and the niyamas. And those are the ethical restraints and the personal observances. There's 5 each, 5 yamas, 5 niyamas that we practice. The 5 yamas, and they're called restraints because we restrain ourselves so that the opposite can grow. We practice non-violence, non-harming, ahimsa, so that peacefulness will grow. Not that we're trying to restrain ourselves from violence. We're putting that restraint in place so that we can have a harmonious, peaceful, loving life. And we have that to offer others. The same with satya, which is truthfulness, astraya, which is not stealing, uh, brahmacharya, which is being observant of our sexual energy and other energies as well. Not so much as being, we can think of it as non-excess, not so much as being celibate as it is just being mindful of our energy and how we use it. Then apragahara, which is non-possessiveness, or non-greed. And then we have the niyamas, which are personal observances. Satya, which is purity. Santosha, which is contentment. Tapas. This is an important one. We'll circle back to that in a minute. Self-discipline, training your senses. Svadhyahara, which is self-study, inner exploration, or reading the scriptures, whichever scriptures call for you, or all of the scriptures that call for you. Eshvara, pranahana, which is surrendering to the divine that we is meaningful for us. Could be God, Jesus, Mary, Krishna, Buddha. What's meaningful for you. These aren't commandments. That's the difference between yoga and a religion. They're suggestions. Yoga is saying this is a path that has worked for billions of people for 5,000 plus years. Try it. See if it works for you. If not, this isn't your path. Try another path. So circling back to tapas, self-discipline, training your senses. Tapas literally means heat. And it is the path of purity, that we purify ourselves by dedicating ourselves to some type of discipline. So when you see, now I'm circling back to Joe, when you see Joe get up in the morning and hit 100 push-ups and 100 squats, or I think he did 60 days in a row of Navy SEAL burpees. And if you've done a Navy SEAL burpee, you know 60 days in a row is no joke whatsoever. That's a spiritual practice. And you can tell, I don't know as Joe might put it in those exact words himself, but you can tell it's a spiritual practice for him, the dedication that's involved, and that he surrenders to it. So all of those 10 yamas and yamas are displayed in 100 morning push-ups or 50 morning push-ups or whatever he does or whatever you do. Non-violence. Joe is seeking not to harm himself by getting in shape, by being healthy, by having a body that is energetic and joyful and content and able to carry him through a well-fulfilled life. Truthfulness. He's telling the truth. This is where I am now. Can't lie about it. I can do this many push-ups. I hope to be able to do this many, but I got to be honest, this is where I am now, and I'm working towards this. Non-stealing. And all of these have a deeper level. Joe isn't stealing from his future. He's investing in it, one rep at a time. Joe, I hope you don't mind me using you as an example. Brahmacharya, which again is loosely translated to celibacy, but it's all about energy. And Joe is being careful with his energy. He's not seeing how many reps can I get right now and then I'm done. He's not pounding out the reps. He's moderating himself. He's doing things within his capability, but extending that day by day by day. Non-possessiveness, non-greed. He's not demanding more of himself right now than he can give. He knows exactly how much that is, and again, he extends it a little bit more. And then we go on to the niyamas, the observances, purity, or some might say cleanliness. I like purity myself. That what he's doing is pure drive, contentment, happiness, getting those reps in. And again, the second one, contentment. This is what I'm doing. It could be doing something else. It could be watching TV. I could be sitting on the couch watching a movie, eating ice cream. I could be gambling. I could be doing whatever. But I'm content right here doing my push-ups. Tapas, the self-discipline, that's taken care of. I don't even have to explain it. You see it if you visit his channel, if you visit Brian's channel, any of these guys. They're got that self-discipline. Especially Brian, when he talks about what he's been through. Self-study and inner exploration. There's no greater self-study than putting yourself on the edge. 60 days of Navy SEAL burpees. You got to know yourself. You got to know, you got to dive deep into yourself to find that inspiration to do rep after rep after rep. Surrender. You give it away. Here I am doing these burpees. I give myself fully to these burpees. That is the burpee path of yoga. That's the push-up path of yoga. That's why Hawk 076 is a yogi. That's why Brian Lane is a yogi. That's why my good friend Destiny Forever Walks PhD is a yogi. Destiny exhibits all of those 5 yamas, 5 niyamas as well. Brian is saying, hi to Hulk. Definitely check out his page, Brian, if you haven't already. It's a guy that puts in the work day after day after day. So when people say, you know, I had a great suggestion. Actually, Duncan gave this suggestion to me before, and yesterday, Burpees Bandit, that I should do a yoga class live session. People will follow along. That's basically what I do on my live talks, a yoga class. But it's the psychology, the philosophy, the nitty-gritty of yoga, not the asanas, which again are a very small part. There's 8 limbs of yoga, and they all lead towards the very last one, which is samadhi, which is bliss consciousness. Without everything else in place, none of them have that much meaning of their own. I think if you had to drop one, it's a complete path. You don't need to drop anything. But if I had to drop one, then it would be the asanas, because you have the ethics in place, you get into breath work, and then you do the entire process of meditation, and that'll take you where you feel you need to go. That will reveal the essence of who you are. Brian says, yeah, he's sub to Hawk. We got to hide Destiny. Destiny says, well, thank you, Eric, for revealing that. I have to follow up on the yogic lifestyle. There's lots of different ways of looking at it. that you can think of a yogic, well, you have a yogic lifestyle, or you could think of an Ayurvedic lifestyle. Ayurvedic is the sister science of yoga, and it deals with diet, and it deals with balancing out the doshas. Doshas are you can call it a body type or energetic type. We're a mixture of the three doshas. Um, I am I try to base my life on Ayurvedic living, but I'm not greatly versed in the depth of Ayurvedic. Although I have a couple classes on deck that I haven't started yet. Um, the yogic lifestyle is again about the ethical principles that I just listed, as well as doing breath work, as well as getting in some of the postures so that we can sit longer in meditation, and so that we open up the energy centers so that the Kundalini flows up the spine, that we recognize the Shiva Shakti, which is the Shakti being the divine creative energy, uh, meeting Shiva, which is the male energy, and thus we have creation. Um, Withdrawal of the senses, which is the beginning stages of meditation, and then turning inwards with meditation. That would be the yogic path or the yogic lifestyle. Um, Brian says, Eric, there's a Buddhist temple not far from here. One day I may visit. I find them interesting. They definitely are, and you might find that the Buddhist path is meant for you. You might not, but there's no harm in going and seeing. I have been greatly influenced by Buddhist practices. I've done Buddhist meditation for quite some time. Um, I've gone to some Buddha Dharma gathering and talks in the past. I don't consider myself a Buddhist, though, although I do practice Buddhist ideals because they're aligned very similar with yoga. Brian says in answer to Destiny that he's doing great. Thanks for asking. Hanging out with my turtles and listening to Eric here. Yeah, turtles are awesome. I'm thinking Tuesday I'm going to take a visit to about 2 miles from my home. There is a small pond that is just filled with turtles, from small to gigantic and moss covered, so you can tell how old they are. Um, Literally have moss and grass growing on their backs. Um, some of them may weigh well over 100 pounds, and it's a small pond. It just amazes me that they're there. And some of them are really big snapping turtles. Um, Absolutely amazing to see. We're waiting for a sunny, warm day because that's when they love to come out and sun themselves. So I'm hoping I'll bring my camera, my phone, and get some film of that as well. And we'll dedicate that to Brian and his love for turtles, especially his turtles. Hawk just finished. Looking forward to checking them out. And again, Joe, I hope you don't mind me using you as a yogi example. Brian says that he loves Thich Nhat Hanh, was a real hero. He certainly was. And his teachings from books, videos, and tapes throughout my life have been an awesome inspiration for me quite a bit. Hawk says, no, I don't. Go ahead. I actually already did. The first, probably first 10 minutes, I broke down the 10 fundamentals, the foundation of yoga, and explain how you display each one of them in your morning practice. Um, it makes you the push-up yogi. I was just actually had a brief conversation with James Guype about my channel title and the suggestion that maybe just a yogi doing burpees in his basement might be a bit too long, although it stands out and it does get me some uh, recognition a little bit. Um, but yeah, I was thinking maybe just a yogi in his basement. Although, you know what, I spend just as much time being just a yogi in his office as I do being just a yogi in his basement. Um, and I talk more than I do burpees. I do my share of burpees. Again, 800 plus days of burpees, but definitely more than just a yogi doing burpees in his basement. Um, so the other aspect of yoga psychology, we're going to get into, is what's called the gunas, Gunas. And there's 3 gunas, and gunas are emotional embodiment. Let's see. Brian says I don't really do much yoga, but sometimes I did the chair sitting kind of. What is that called? Uh, I'm not sure. I'm having a hard time visualizing it. But I would say, Brian, that you actually do quite a bit of yoga. As I explained with the foundations, with the 5 yamas and niyamas, that you live in an ethical lifestyle. That I could easily say the 12 steps are yogic principles. With Bill W. himself, one of the founders of the 12 Steps, AA, being very much influenced by Buddhism as well as yoga. And of course, the Buddha himself was a yogi. He practiced yoga. Also, you meditate in nature. Meditation is a larger limb of the yogic path than the physical practices. So, and you do breath work, essential yogic practice. So if we're talking about just the physical postures, that's probably the smallest part of yoga itself. It's the yoga psychology and the yoga philosophy that is the most meaningful. That's what changes your life. Doing breath work and meditation will change your life, as well as practicing the ethical principles, will change your life more than anything else. Let's see. Destiny says a yogic lifestyle and burpees. James Guype, think as I did when I shared this title with you, Eric. That's true. And that does cover everything. A yogi's lifestyle. I do like just the yogi part. It sort of simplifies things. Brian says, okay, I wasn't sure. And the Buddha was from India. Yes, and when he left his palace, he was a prince. When he left his palace, he studied with all the great yogis of his day, exceeding all of them in states of meditation and absorption, and also some of the most limiting practices, supposedly surviving on just 1 or 2 grains of rice for days on end. Destiny says, I love meditating meditating out in nature. That's where I find myself. Everything slips away, and we find that we simply are nature. Again, that's why I love the spontaneous style of Niskara yoga, which is natural yoga. Getting out in nature and discovering that we are that which we seek. We're nature. We're every bit as much nature as anything else that can be found, from tree to bush to blade of grass to rock to us. It's all a seamless display of nature itself. Brian says, also like Lao Tzu. Taoism is a wonderful path to follow. Again, very close to nature. The simplicity of the Tao, of just this. I actually wrote a small book on Tao and long distance running, the Tao of distance running or walking, where I took each of the 108 verses of the Tao Te Ching and did a lyrical prose on how it would, how I would apply it to my long distance, my ultra running and ultra walking. So the gunas are energetic essence. There's 3 of them. Destiny says, you want to keep the connection with the Burpees world? Yes, I do. And with fitness. True. You have a strong connection with those communities and some amazing friends like yourself. Definitely. I would not be here on YouTube. I wouldn't be having the conversation with all of you guys, all of the great people in my life, without Burpees. So definitely, yeah. I will probably just keep it as is, because even though it's long, it does covers all the bases of me. Brian says, when I listen to Dan from Breathwork Beats, he'd always do a reading from the Tao after doing breathwork, and always loved it. Some would say, well, the Tao Te Ching is the 2nd most translated book in the world, next to the Bible. You can spend an entire lifetime studying the Tao Te Ching and never be steered wrong. And it covers everything. How to live your life. It covers politics, how a leader should behave. Boy, if we listen to that, what a different world, what a different country, what a different community we would live in. Hulk says, it's the same. If it wasn't for Burpees, I wouldn't be here. For that matter, getting back into physical life. Such a great move, but more than that, it's definitely has a power to doing burpees. I mean, it has drawn people from all over the world, all walks of life, who have dedicated themselves. Which I'm always amazed when someone, says, "Hey, that's not the way you're supposed to do burpees," as if you're not supposed to make something your own. It's just weird, in my opinion. 4 Plus Fitness, how are you? Hello, Eric. Just a quick stop to say hello. Great, rich conversation. Not always my best. I appreciate that. If you guys are familiar with 4 Plus Fitness or not, definitely go visit her channel. Man, I got to figure out a way to drop people's channels someday. I think you need a certain amount of subscribers, or you need something before you can do it, I think. But definitely check her out. She always has highly energetic routines that she offers for people. Brian says, see, I'm originally Lutheran religion, but I don't always agree with the Old Testament. A war god, quick to punish, it says. Yeah, I was raised Catholic. For Paul says, I'm doing well. Hope you are doing well. I am. Thank you. And Hawk says, that's because they see CrossFit burpees and think that's the only way. Yeah, I agree. Both Brian and I had someone telling us that was the only way to do burpees. Destiny says For Paul's has a awesome fitness channel. Yes, she certainly does. Yeah, Brian, I went to Catholic school for much of my life up until second year in high school, when I was so kindly asked to switch schools, and that perhaps a public school would be better suited for me. My parents, who were both teachers, were not too pleased with that request, but they always stood by me. Even when I don't think I really deserved it, they always stood by me. Um, For Paul says, have a great day, Eric, and everyone here. Cheers. Thank you. You too. Um, so, yeah, I was talking about the gunas being essential, not just to uh, yoga, but to Ayurveda, Ayurvedic philosophy as well. The gunas we can call them sort of our energetic essence. There's three of them. Sattva, which is purity, sort of that state of mind, body, flow, everything just being perfect the way it is. Raja, which is sort of restlessness, agitated type of personality. Tamas, which is dullness, um, sort of inertia, not wanting to move. And all of us are a mixture of all three to varying degrees. Some of us have more of the tamas, a little more of the rajas. Some of us are highly sattvic. Sattva is what we try to cultivate, to gradually through the practice of yoga and lifestyle, that we rise into a sattvic style life, which means that we purify ourselves. Yoga is God realization. So when we practice yoga, we are aiming towards purity, our pure sattvic nature, the divine joy, nature itself. That's the essence, the psychological essence of yoga. So, when people talk yoga, unfortunately nowadays, when they say, oh, so you teach yoga, they assume that I teach the poses and postures. And although I practice them, and although I am certified to teach them, um, it's not what I do teach. I teach meditation, and I teach breath work, and I teach the yogic psychology and ethics. So, and that kind of stuff is hard to, sit and say, practice with me. All you can really do is come here on a live session and have a conversation about them. And what I try to do is liken them to people like Joe and what he's doing and why it's a form of yoga. And Destiny and Brian as well, and for Pulse Fitness for that matter. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, which Brian, by the way, I highly recommend. If you have not dove into the Bhagavad Gita, definitely do so. Another life-changing book of equal importance to me as the Tao Te Ching, maybe even more so. Krishna tells Arjuna that there's 4 paths of yoga. Actually more, but these are the 4 main paths. And you have karma yoga, which is the yoga of action, that you are using the body, that you are using motion in order to become God realized, and you are surrendering all of that to God, to Krishna. It's the path of service, that you are using that energy and motion of life in order to serve people. Ram Dass, if you're familiar with Ram Dass, he was a karma yogi. And then you have Jnana Yoga, which is the yoga of wisdom, of insight. And it's done through the practice of self-inquiry, of asking ourselves relentlessly, who am I? The greatest form of self-inquiry, questioning ourselves, who am I? Why am I here? What am I? And don't settle for an answer. Keep asking that and discarding every answer that comes to you until you get to the bottom line silence. That I am nothingness itself. Not nothing, nothingness. Nothingness means it's the capacity for everything to exist. Nothing is the absence of everything. Nothingness is the allowance of everything. We keep asking ourselves until we get to that point where we have no answers. We've dismissed them all. And Vedic yogic practice, it would be the neti neti meditation. Neti means not this. So everything that arises and we ask ourselves, am I this body? And we would say, not this. Neti, neti, not the body. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my job. I'm not my position in life. I am not my title, my label. I'm none of those things. I keep asking, what am I? And finally, we get to silence. And as Herman Melville said in Moby Dick, silence is the only voice of God. When we get to silence, now we're realizing who and what we are. That's jhana yoga. And then we have bhakti yoga. Bhakti is the path of devotion, where we love God so much in any one of his or her appearances. Jesus, Krishna, Shiva, doesn't matter, whoever we choose to devote ourselves to in that path. Some say that, excuse me, Bhakti Yoga is the quickest path to God realization, because through devoting ourselves to God, we become quickly realized as one with God. We find God everywhere. We find God in the details. Rumi, the Persian poet, was a Bhakti Yoga. He was so devoted to Shams of Tabriz, who was his master, that he found God just surfacing up in his daily life in every single appearance whatsoever. And then we have Raja Yoga, which is the path that I most sort of identify with. And again, that is the 8 limbs, Ashtang. Ashtang means 8. Ashtanga means 8. The 8 limbs of yoga, which again are the yamas, the niyamas, pranayama, asanas, pranayama, which is the withdrawal, pratyahara, which is withdrawal of the senses, and then the depth of meditation. 3 limbs that take us all the way to bliss consciousness. You could also call bliss consciousness universal consciousness, Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, God consciousness. That is the 8 limbs of yoga. Most of the time, if people say, what type of yoga do you practice? I would say Raja Yoga, although I do practice self-inquiry. And obviously I love motion and action, so Karma Yogi as well. And I have a strong devotional streak. But even more often, I dismiss them all and I simply say Niskara, natural, spontaneous, joyful, creative, intuitive yoga, Niskara yoga. That is the same category. If asked, I would say that Destiny fits in. Niskara yoga. None of her moves on the treadmill are planned. She doesn't say, I'm going to do this and then this and then this and then this. She simply expresses herself. She is Shakti, that divine energy, is moving her body. I don't even think Destiny's moving her body. It's nature itself. It's life spontaneously having her move in this joyful manner. It's like watching the Sufis whirl with abandon and just joy. So much joy in simply being alive, simply being. So, let's see. Brian says, I know that book. My mom likes the Bhagavad. I didn't spell it right. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, familiar with Lord Krishna. Um, if you ever read the book The Legend of Bagger Vance, skip the movie because the movie really had nothing to do with the book. The Legend of Bagger Vance, Bagger Vance, is a retelling of the Bhagavad Gita on the golf links. It's a wonderful book. I got a copy on, I believe, this shelf, and I read it maybe once a year, once every 2 years or so. Destiny says, enjoying your conversation, Eric. I do relate to what you're saying. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for being here. I very much appreciate it. So, actually, with that, boy, I'm worn out talking about yoga. I got a little animated there. It is almost 2 o'clock, so I'm going to call it a day for this talk at least, and get in my second meditation. I am going to be back later, 5:15ish, and I'm going to read. I think I enjoyed reading about ducks last night, and yesterday I forget what it was that I read about, but it was animals as well. So I might dive into my archives. I got 25 years of blog writing, and do some more nature shamanic readings. For me, it is a form of shamanism because, again, when I thought of ducks, it was what the ducks want to tell me. It wasn't how can I describe ducks. It was what the ducks want me to say. And that's what I wrote. And I have a lot more writing like that. And I write something like that at least once or twice a week. I've mentioned before, I write every day, never missing a day. I haven't missed a day of writing in 25 years. And that includes when I was doing 100-mile races or 24-hour races. I would take a moment, sit down on a tree stump, on a rock, at an aid station, on the ground, and I would do a quick meditation, and then I would write on my phone. I would text myself whatever came to me. It was important for me to write every day, and it still is. So anyway, I'll be back. If there's an animal that you would like me to read about, I'll look through my archives and see what I have, if I have something. If I don't, I'll try to write something. Leave a comment, let me know. Destiny says, you are so right, Eric. I never know what I do that treadmill once I go onto my zone and when I watch the uploads later. Check out, if you get a chance, on YouTube, Amrit Yoga. Amrit Desi was actually still is, and he's, I believe, 96, a great yoga teacher who, his entire teaching of yoga is to open the body to the Shakti energy so it will express itself and not in any formalized way, and not like do this or do that, start with this posture, go to this posture. Let Shakti dictate how your body moves. And if you watch him do his yoga, it's amazing because none of it's planned. It is, let me Google it so I make sure that I spell it right. Comes right up for me because I Google him often. Amrit, Amrit, Nesia, 2 names. Amrit Desai. And yep, he's 91 years old. And just this beautiful, spontaneous yoga. And that's been my goal in my own yogic asana practice until I inadvertently hurt my back doing something stupid. So now my yoga is twofold. My physical yoga practice is to heal my back, and 2, always keep clearing that chakra channel so that Kundalini and the Shakti flows up and down the spine. But to be able to move in that spontaneous fashion, it's the same way when I try to run, well, when I run, I don't try to run, is to, I run when I feel called to run. I walk when I feel called to walk. Sometimes I walk really fast. Sometimes I walk slower. Sometimes I run faster. Sometimes I run slow. Mostly I run slow because I'm trying to really be absorbed within nature itself, to let it reclaim me. Let's see. Have you watched Hasman Hotel? I haven't. You're a toast. Hey, welcome back. It's been a little while since you've been here. Brian says, I run slow. Sometimes I speed up going uphill. Great to do wind sprints. Let's see. Thanks, Eric and chat, for these wonderful moments and conversations. Happy Sunday and blessings to you all. Enjoy your day. Much love. Thank you, Destiny. You too. And I'm going to try to find a really good video of Amrit, and I'll put it on my community page. So look for that in a little bit. Your toast says hi. Hey, how are you, my friend? I'm actually calling it a day, but I appreciate you stopping by. And I'm going to look for that Hasman Hotel. I'm going to look for that. Appreciate the suggestion. So, guys, I'll see everyone later. Like I said, I'll be back between 5 and 5:30. Split the difference. Let's say I'll be back at 5:15. So I'll see you guys then. Take care. Namaste to you, my friend.